In this video, we're going to rewind the clock and start at the very beginning with the original Tough 5 dudes. Hello again, Tabletop Warriors, and welcome back to the Plague Den. My name's Tony. This is my continuing video series where we explore the 40K universe one model at a time. If you're new to this channel, welcome, and please consider subscribing for more videos just like this one. Today, we're going to go back to the beginning. We're talking Toughness 5. We're talking troops. We're talking where it all started. Today's model, Plague Marines. I'm going to give you some tactics and tips on how to use these guys in your Death Guard army. We're going to do things a little bit different today. Instead of doing the 5 tips, there's a lot going on with these guys. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of different points you can pump into these guys. There's a lot of different ways that you can use them in your army. So we're just going to kind of roll through them as we go. And we're going right at it. So back when I first built my Death Guard army, this was one of the reasons why I built it. I wanted Plague Marines. I wanted them in rhinos. I wanted them with plasma guns. I wanted them rapid firing out of the top. I wanted 3 or 4 of them. I thought they were awesome. I thought Toughness 5 is great. Back then it was just feel no pain. I was super excited, and that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Death Guard in the first place. Unfortunately, now they have their own codex. They've simply sort of fallen out of favor in terms of how competitive they are in a competitive list. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not competitive. It doesn't mean that people don't use them in tournament lists. But when it comes to the big tournaments and you're using Death Guard, you just don't see a lot of Plague Marines. One reason is they're 80 points. 80 points for just the base 5-man unit, which comes with the bolt guns and the plague knives. 80 points is a lot of points for 5 models. It's approximately 20. It is 20 points a model. Unlike Cultists, which are 10 for 50 points, or Poxwalkers, which is 10 for 60 points. And then anytime you upgrade the Plague Marines, it costs you more money. Or, I'm sorry, more points. So they're fun. And they can be competitive, and you can build lists around Plague Marines. They're just not super used in competitive lists. Everybody wants to take those points and add them into the new, bigger, sexier units like the Deredeo Dreadnoughts and Mortarion, and just get more bang for your buck when it comes to the 8th edition rules right now. As it is everybody wants to use detachments, everybody wants to use the biggest and best units, and everybody wants to just put the minimum possible points into their troops. And if you have 3 units of Plague Marines at 240 points, that's a lot of points to have tied up in your troops when you can do it for 150 for Cultists. So don't take that as I'm banging on the Plague Marines or I'm saying they're no good. I'm just saying that competitively for ITC lists, most people don't use them. They use the other, or if they're going to use them, they maybe use one, but mostly they use Cultists and Poxwalkers. Now, personally, I still use them. I've got a couple of units that I'm actually working on painting up right now. There's a lot of different variations, but it sounds like the best way, and what I've found in the research that I've done, the best way to use them to their most effectiveness is to keep them sort of in the back line, taking control of objectives and continuously firing their weapons if they're in range. So if you want to take them with 5 Marines, put them with some Blight Launchers, 2 Blight Launchers, the Champion has a plasma gun, that's about 111 points, and they can continue to just fire those Blight Launchers every turn. Remember, those are assault weapons so that they can advance and shoot if that's what you need to do to get to the next objective. They can continue to shoot those Blight Launchers. If you don't want to do Blight Launchers, another alternative is 3 melted guns. The Champion and 2 of the special weapons have melted guns. They can rapid fire, constant rapid fire in that 18-inch range, just moving from objective to objective. So another thing you can do with them is use them as screens for your characters. Keep them moving in front of your characters to give them some protection until you get them to where they need to be. Death Guard is, remember, all up in your face. They want to be in close. They want to do a lot of melee. A lot of the characters are very good at that. Plague Marines can be used to screen and buy time because they can constantly keep moving and shooting. So those are just a couple of options. So in addition to the ranged option with the Blight Launchers and the plasma gun, you can also give them the Bubotic Axe along with their Plague Knives, and they get that extra attack under the Vectors of Death and Disease. You can give a couple of them the Flail of Corruption, which lets those damage points roll over till the unit's destroyed. You can put them in a Rhino and add some characters with them, like a Plaguecaster, and give them that Putrescent Vitality, or the Blades of Putrefaction, or the Miasma of Pestilence to keep them -1 to hit. All kinds of different options to kind of protect them or make them tougher when you do get them into close combat. You can give them you can put the Blight Spawn with them that stops that charge from them being able to go first, your opponent being able to go first if they get charged. You can put the Blightbringer with them, and then give them the Icon of Despair and kind of play some -1/-1 leadership. So you'd be up to -2 leadership games, your enemy, anytime that you're in close combat. That can be effective. You can put the Tallyman and get the rerolls. So there's all kinds of options that you can do for melee. But remember, you're only getting the 2 attacks. They're really not built out for super melee. There's some other units that are better in melee than that. But it's certainly an option. It's your game if you want to spend the money. And if you have the plan to surprise your opponent with kind of a plague bus with a Rhino full of like 7 Plague Marines and some support characters that just go in there and kind of like a Death Star to just kind of roll in there and take out some units. That's great, and it can be super fun, especially if you catch your opponent off guard. But again, have a plan before you go into it and figure out what you want to do. If you want to use multiple units of Plague Marines and have a couple kitted out for range and have one kitted out for melee, that's great too. So I think one kind of important tip when you're building these Plague Marines is to try to stick with one thing or another. Either you're going to use them for range, you're going to keep them back, you're going to hold objectives, you're going to move them around and just continue that relentless shooting, or you're going to kit them out for melee. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to do both. So I would stay away from making super heavy point sync units where you have a bunch of melee weapons and special weapons or whatever. I would just stick with either range guys or the melee guys. Getting them, trying to do too much at once can get a lot of points that are just wasted because they really can't do two things at once. So kit them out for either one or the other. I think that's an important tip for when you're using these guys in your army. If you want to take them in units of 5, so you maximize the amount of heavy weapons or special weapons they can use, that's good. If you want to take them in units of 7s, because you want to have a couple of more extra wounds to allocate outside of your heavy weapons, so you maybe do 2 or 3 units of 7 as opposed to 3 or 4 units of 5, or whatever the case may be. Those are up to you, but make sure you have a plan. It can be good to get those extra wounds, but then again, you're spending more points. Additionally, if you think you're going to be going up against some things that are super tough, maybe you want to put a Power Fist on the Sergeant, or so that he can pop some bigger characters or some vehicles or whatever the case may be in your specific meta and who you're playing. Remember, the only people that know what's best for you and your army is you, because you know who you're playing, you know who your friends' armies are, you know who they roll with on a regular basis. So again, Plague Marines, the best. Blight Launchers, Champion has a plasma gun, Assault 2 weapons that you can move out the battlefield, you can advance, gives you all kinds of versatility to do what you need to do, hold objectives. Almost as good. Plasma guns, some will argue that that's just as good because the rapid fire bonus is so good with the plasma guns. Melee, remember bubonic axes or maybe the flail. You can try out some other weapons, but I think those are proven to be the ones that are most effective. And then using your Veterans of the Long War stratagem, using your sorcerers to cast the right spells on these guys to get them in position, putting them with support characters. If you put enough support elite characters with them, they can become extremely powerful, especially in bigger rolled units like 7s or 8s or 9s. Remember, you can take Plague Marines all the way up to 10, 20 Plague Marines in a unit. Now you only get the 2 special weapons, but you can have up to 20 Plague Marines in one unit. So that'd be kind of cool, right? 3 units of 20, you could have 60 Plague Marines on the board at once. Your opponent would be like, oh my gosh, I cannot kill these guys fast enough. And you never know. But, like I said, based off the meta, units of 5 is probably your most cost effective, but it's not fluffy. If you want to be fluffy, play with 7. And there's all kinds of weapons that you can use with these guys. I would also say magnetize, magnetize, magnetize. If you want to be able to switch out weapons, try to magnetize these guys as much as possible. I know that there's a bunch of unique poses with Plague Marines now in the way that the models are cast. But if you get creative, you probably can figure out some ways to kind of magnetize some different weapon options on there, so you're not stuck with what you got. Try to maximize your weapons as much as possible. Another good tip is always use the, if you can, when you're Warlord, have the Arch Contaminator, because if you're going to kit them out melee and they all have plague weapons, even most of the shooting weapons besides the plasma gun are plague weapons. So Arch Contaminator letting you get those rerolls on the melee weapons and the shooting weapons. If you're using the Blight Launcher, I would say if you want to use a melee, try to take that Warlord and keep them close with the Arch Contaminator, giving them that buff. Like I said before, there's a lot you can do with characters and giving them rerolls and giving them buffs and giving them rerolls on the plague weapons. Again, those are just some basic tips on Plague Marines. The melee one, I think, like I said, costs you about 110 points. The ranged one costs about 111 points. Your basic 5 Plague Marines cost 80 points. Let me know how you guys are using them. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what characters you're putting them with. All right, so there you go. There's some tips and tricks on how to use the Plague Marines in your army. A little bit about how I feel like how they work and what might work for you. I know it was a little bit rambling, a little bit unstructured. I tried to do things a little bit different this time, just because with Plague Marines there's so much to go over, and I didn't want to just like read the codex to you and tell you, all their different options, because they have so many weapon options and so many melee and ranged options. So a little bit unstructured, but hopefully I covered most of the important points. So until next time, this is Tony saying, win all your battles in life and on the tabletop. See you guys later.